Hello, good evening. I welcome everyone on behalf of Yunus Emre Institute of London office. I am Tugay Durak, and I'm a doctoral student at UCL Institute of Education in the field of international higher education. And I will lead today's session of Yusuf Iqbal Oldaç. First, I would like to start by giving an overview of Turkish international students studying abroad. Similar to global patterns, it's seen that the US is the most popular study destination for Turkish students, hosting nearly 10,000 Turkish students. Then Germany comes, hosting nearly 6,000, and then UK is hosting more than 3,000 Turkish students. In total, according to UNESCO statistics for 2017, in total across the world, nearly 50,000 Turkish students are studying outside of Turkey. This is the overview of Turkish statistics on Turkish students studying across the world. Nearly 50,000 Turkish students who was studying in the 3 years before. Now I assume that it's more than that. And when I was studying in Turkey, actually I was thinking that why the Turkish students do not come back quite easily after their graduation when they study abroad. And then, but when I come to the UK, and then after a while, I was thinking that, okay, this is not so much easy decision to return back quite easily. Actually, once when I was talking to one of my friends, I have talked to him because he had some kind of concerns returning back to Turkey. And then I asked him, it's why this is a quite difficult question to take. And then he said to me, because I have changed. And then I realized that after 4 or 5 years, international students are changing their motivations, their identities, their characteristics, all of the such kind of characteristics are changing. So it's quite big decision to return back. And also their all kind of decisions are changing during this time. Also, one of the things is changing, their perception on contribution to the society, I mean the Turkey. Yusuf Iqbal Oldaç today will talk about this kind of things, their self-formation process, which investigate this kind of all characteristic changes of international students in a case study of Turkish students studying in different countries, Bulgaria, Germany, Azerbaijan, and United Kingdom. Yusuf Iqbal Oldaç, a doctoral student at University of Oxford, will share some preliminary findings of his doctoral study, which focuses on self-formation of Turkish international education students studying different countries and the extent of the contribution to Turkey. Okay, Yusuf, now we are listening to you.
Thank you, Tugay. Thank you for this very informative introduction. As you mentioned, I'm Yusuf. I'm doing PhD at the University of Oxford. I'll share some of my findings today. Let me share my screen first before I start. Um, Tugay, how does it look?
Yeah, it seems fine.
It's good.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I've been asked to deliver a 30-minute talk on this broadcast live. So I'll try to abide by that time frame. So this is a largely theoretical work. I'll have to keep some parts short, but I'll do my best to tell you the details. If you have any questions, you can talk afterwards, or I'll give you my email. You can email me afterwards at any point.
Also, I like to remind to our audiences, you can write your questions in the chat box, which is at the bottom of the screen. And also there's a Q&A section of the Zoom program. So you can write your questions anytime you want in the chat box and in Q&A.
Cool.
Okay,
We'll answer those afterwards. So here's the title: The Self-Formation of International Higher Education Students and Their Contributions to Society. The Case of Turkish International Higher Education Graduates. So let me take us through the contents of this presentation. I'll start with introduction. I'll briefly introduce what I mean by self-formation, what is the general theories on the field, etc., etc. And then I'll move on to telling you about research purpose. And then I'll tell you about the methods a bit, and then we'll go through the findings and discussions. So let's start with the position of international students then. So I wanted to start with this because most of the existing literature positions international higher education students as passive students, as receivers. So based on this, when they go abroad, they kind of try to adapt to the culture. Let me show you two visuals related to this. So what happens afterwards is that the literature focuses on how can we help these students adapt to the culture better. If they adapt better, they will do better, they will be more successful, etc., etc. These are the positions, which is not completely wrong, not at all, but I'm taking a different perspective. Let me take you through these visuals. These are some of the um, influential ones in the literature. The one on the right, as you can see, it says U curve adjustment. Uh, it basically says when someone goes abroad for studying, first couple of months are honeymoon period. Everything is so good, so fine, no problem at all. Students just enjoy the time. But according to this theory, after a few months, this fades away and then a cultural shock happens. And when that happens, students become miserable, like it's a hard time for them, they don't know what to do. And then gradually they adjust back. It gets back to normal. And then they master the culture, they become more like them, or at least they have a better grasp of the host culture. Another approach to this was a acculturation approach, the one on the left. As you can see, there are two sides of the square. One side is about home culture identity, and the other side is host culture identity. According to Barry, this author, for example, if someone, let's say, has less, gives up home culture identity and then obtains host culture identity, they are assimilated. This is assimilation. Or other possibilities are there as well. If someone still keeps home culture identity, but then learns more about host culture identity, it's integration. These are true, they're not wrong, but they're kind of simplistic. Here's what we do not see here is that agency. Agency is downplayed, the individuals themselves. The way I see it, higher education is a self formation process. This self formation process is based on the idea that at the end of the day, only the learner does the actual learning. It's positioned against the passive receiver paradigms. It's not to say that they do not adopt, etc., but there is active personal agency going on there, and that has been neglected. Um, the core concerns of this theory is that agency and reflexivity. The one thing about this theory is that it has not been operationalized yet. There are two papers main papers that theorize this approach, but these are published in 2014 and 2017 and not much afterwards. So this doctoral work is one of the first attempts to do so. Another question might come to mind is that the way I explained, self-formation can happen anywhere, right? It can happen in a university back in your hometown. Well, the point here is that when someone goes abroad, they leave whatever they have, like the friendships, the support network, their family, all behind. They kind of, quote unquote, insert themselves into a new society, a new society that has different values, that has different civic understandings, etc., and etc. And this takes place from 1 year to more than 1 years if we're looking at degree educations, which is what I'm focusing here. And that's why when there's in the international education, students go through an accelerated form of self-formation. They learn a lot of stuff in a shorter time period. And this is very interesting. That's why I focus on those who studied abroad in different universities. So building on these, what guided this study? I had two questions that guided this study. The first one is, how do Turkish international higher education grads explain their self-formation during and through their international higher education? So I wanted them to explain their self-formation. And then the second question is, how do these people explain their potential contributions to Turkey and society in general after going through such self-formation experience? The point behind this, the second question, was that once someone goes through a self-formation process, their thoughts, their ideas about how they can contribute to their home country or society in general might also change or develop in time. So let me go through the methods quickly. I'll try not to go into their technicalities to keep the presentation short and neat, but if you have any questions regarding this, I'll be happy to answer afterwards. So, as the title suggests, this is a qualitative case study, and all the participants are Turkish students. So, although the study focused on developing the self-formation theory further, the conceptual development of this idea, since all the participants are Turkish, Turkey-related issues came up a lot. I'll be discussing some of them. Main data collection approach for this was qualitative interviewing. And as you can see from the photos, this is a international comparative research. I did field works in 5 countries. A question comes up to mind at this point. How did I choose all these countries? Well, I looked at UNESCO data for top 10 destinations for Turkish international students, outgoing students. And then from that list, I knew that I wouldn't be able to go to all these countries. I had to make this study feasible. So I picked 4 countries that kind of differed the most. And these countries, as you can see from these photos, by the way, I took all these photos. I went to all these countries to do my field work. The one on bottom right is London, UK. I did interviews there. And then the one on top right is Berlin, Germany. So I interviewed Turkish students who studied in Germany. And then the one in center is Baku, Azerbaijan. Turkey also sends thousands of students every year to Azerbaijan. And then the one on bottom left is Sofia, Bulgaria. Turkey has been sending thousands of students there as well. So I wanted to learn how they may be forming, self-forming. And the one on the top left is a photo of Istanbul. I put that because I also did interviews in Turkey. I interviewed those who have returned after graduating from these countries. I interviewed those who have returned because those who have stayed or returned might have different ideas about their contributions to one country or their self formation. So eventually, I ended up having 50 participants from 5 countries, and I made sure that these were balanced in terms of age, in terms of return status, gender, their subject area, so that I'll have a better grasp of this. And the study got a base fieldwork grant award number, as you can see. It, Conducting an international comparative research is costly. So I'm really grateful that I was able to secure a grant for this. So let's go through the preliminary findings. I'm saying preliminary findings because although I'm coming close to graduation, this is still a work in progress. But I'll be talking about some of the established findings. I'll be talking about 3 broad domains of self-formation. And by domain, I mean spheres of activity, knowledge, and influence. So the first domain is the qualifications domain. The second one is the social domain. And the third one is the civic domain of self-formation. I will be discussing these separately so you will have a better idea when we get there. And I will also talk about 3 emerging types of contributions. The first one is about contributions to home country. The second one is about contributions to humanities. Some of the participants said their contributions would and should go beyond Turkey. And the third type is no contribution at all. Some said they can't or they don't want to contribute to Turkey. And as we will see, these contributions are highly related to the 3 domains of self-formation that we will discuss. So before I move on to the domains of self-formation, I want to talk about something about my holistic focus. For me, self-formation does not only occur when someone is in a class, like they're studying in this university and they go to lecture, that's it. No. Self-formation occurs outside of the university, in the city they live, in the society they socialize with, etc. This is an example code telling what I am telling you basically. Let me read it for you. This is someone who studied in Azerbaijan. He says a person can take classes and learn from them, but classes are not everything. You have to form yourself, your character. You have to develop your stance towards life. The development of some things is related to the person and their surroundings and network. Many people talked about this. This was just a sample. So, building on this holistic perspective, let's start with the qualifications domain. What do I mean by this? Well, the qualifications domain is broadly about the skills, knowledge, and the formal credentials individuals obtain through international higher education experience. Well, when you say formal qualifications, of course, the first one that comes up to mind is the degree that they went to that country to obtain. But I noticed in the interviews that these students took the chance. They went, they took other education, other formal educations within or with outside of university. I'll give you some examples about this so that we can understand this better, maybe. So the first one is Bora. He studied in Bulgaria. Let me read his quote for you. The country doesn't matter. People go to Bulgaria to get a degree certificate, something that they obtained abroad. Even if it is in Bulgaria, the perspective towards it is different in Turkey. I'm talking about private companies. You earn more in salary. Finding a job is much easier. So in the literature, we have this theory of signaling theory. What Bora says here is connects very well with that one. Basically, what he says is that when you go abroad, you kind of signal to all others, like all the recruiters, that you're so good that you were able to cross a border and get an education. And trust me, going abroad, crossing borders, getting visa, etc., this isn't an easy process. There is that perspective, but it's not limited to that. For example, the second quote is about, let me read it for you. This is someone who studied in Azerbaijan. It says, by studying in Azerbaijan, you can achieve things that you wouldn't be able to achieve in Turkey. Why? Because if you go to an English language course in Turkey, you'll have to pay at least 10,000 liras. But here we went to a very professional 2.5 months course for 500 liras. Or a Cisco course was around 10 to 12,000 liras at that time in Turkey. In Azerbaijan, we took this course for 600 liras. So this person, as you can see, he's making small calculations saying that this was this much cheaper, etc., etc. In the interview, this person told me that he's coming from very humble beginnings. Actually, his family sold their house for him to study, to get his degree. But seems like his self-formation, his qualifications worked out for him because he's now a multimillionaire businessman working in Azerbaijan. So it's good for him, I would say. The second broad the domain of self-formation I will talk about is the social domain. The social domain is about what people obtain thanks to their new social life and networks from their international higher education experience. So when individuals go abroad, they leave their existing families, friends behind. They have to make new friends, new networks in the new context that they find themselves in. And these new friendships and new networks form a new they, let's say. So this is uh, anyone who goes abroad would understand this. Like you leave a social network behind and you have to make new ones. You have to survive. This is part of that. And it's very interesting. Let me read this first quote for you, for example. This person, she studied in UK and now she's back in Turkey. She says, because I made many contacts here in England, I can both obtain information from them about what is happening there and around the world, and write to them when we need to collaborate with a university in the UK, such as Oxford or Essex. So, as you can see, the social domain has this empowering aspect to it. The networks kind of help you to do things that you wouldn't be able to do if you stayed back home. We see an example for this here. There are many more examples to this, many subsections in the normal thesis, but I'm trying to give you like show you some example samples for these. If you have any questions or want more quotes, do contact, send me an email or ask a question afterwards. And then let's talk about another example. Building networks is not an end in itself. They help you form yourself further. For example, this person who's studying in Azerbaijan, he says, let me read the quote for you. I joined the art of carpet weaving and painting. I did not have a network dealing with these back in Turkey. Here I got to meet people who are good at what they do. They invite us and we go join them. This person told me during the interview saying that he didn't even like arts before. Interesting. But after going to Azerbaijan, he got new friendships, new friends who are artists themselves. They invited him, he went with friends, etc. Now he is an artist himself. He's doing carpet weaving and painting. So these are the things that how you form yourself, how self-formation works in social domain. And then the third domain is the civic domain of self-formation. And what do I mean by this? So this is related to the civic understandings people hold towards their participation in their communities. Almost everyone has this. Like some people thinks I contribute my participation to this community is this way. Some people say I don't like them. I don't want to contribute. It's very trivial. But people have some perspective towards this to whichever community they think they belong to, etc. What I'm interested in here is that when people go abroad for a degree education, they observe potentially different civic values and understandings firsthand, and even take active part in civic related activities. And consequently, they form different civic understandings about helping shape their community's future. So, let me give you a few examples about this so that it may be more clearer. So this person who studied in UK, she says, I feel I became more active after going to Oxford. I was always like this. There was no huge transformation. But after Oxford, for instance, I started taking part in those collectives more. The reason for that, I suppose, when I was in England, I would join Palestine protests and so on. I would always join such events. I think the idea that such things could be different and that they could succeed, change things, came to me in England. So as you can see, she now thinks that such things, civic activities, can make a difference. And lucky for her, she's now back in Turkey. Her professional work is very related to these civic activities, and she's trying her best to contribute to her home country in civic ways. There are different aspects of civic domain as well. For example, majority of participants talked about developing new worldviews or obtaining a more nuanced understanding towards the potentially different worldviews they encountered in the countries they studied in. This is the case for everyone, and it's very context dependent. If you study in Azerbaijan, you learn the political atmosphere there, and sometimes you adapt it, you'll start liking it. Those who studied in Germany, different story. Those who study in UK, again. So here I have an example from Germany. Ahmed told me during the interview that Germany has this social democracy system. So let me read the quote for you. I always had in my mind that capitalism does not work, but I couldn't call myself a socialist or anti-capitalist because although I could think and question, I could think and question that capitalism does not work. I could never prove it to myself. For example, after I came here, Germany, I was able to develop these thoughts easier. The people around me helped me with this, not by teaching, but they gave me some food for thought during our discussions. So I call this phenomenon a political apprenticeship. Wherever you go, you learn, you get a more nuanced understanding of the political atmosphere there, and you're in a way an apprentice there. So as you may remember at the beginning of the study, I told you that contributions to society is another important component of this research. So this is based on the idea that when someone goes abroad and forms themselves, their perceptions about contributions to society might also develop, change through time. So one interesting finding I got from the participant interviews is that not returning home country after graduation is not equal to not contributing to home country. Unlike some of those brain drain literature, a lot of participants said that they contribute in some way or another to home country, even though they are not back in Turkey yet. So to keep the discussion brief, and it is easier to talk about the contributions of those who have returned. So I will only share with you the quotes of those who have not returned. These are the people who are still staying in the country that they studied in. So the first one, this person who studied in Germany, he says he contributes to his home country in a diaspora way. This is the diaspora aspect, and he's not the only one talking about this. There are others. Let me read this. We have an expat life here. Anyone coming to Germany come either to do a master's, a doctorate, or to work for qualified jobs here. These people somehow find each other and form a culture. I believe that in the future, our expats here will become much more influential in German politics, in German economy, in German private sector, because a minimum 50 to 60,000 of 100,000 people will be at the top level of the decision-making mechanisms. These people will definitely contribute to Turkey. This is one aspect. And as you can see, it is very much related to the qualifications domain and the social domain because these are highly qualified people and they're talking about building a community, a society, etc. Another way of contributing to home country from abroad is economic contributions. So this person who's studying in Azerbaijan, he says, I sell Turkish brands, let's say X million liras annually. We're contributing to Turkey in such scale. So here, Turkey wins, Azerbaijan wins, and the person who sells this, everyone wins. It's win-win for everyone. So it's another way of contributing to home country. And some others also talked about being a cultural attaché. Let me read this quote and then we can elaborate on this. Any success I have been achieving here, they may say, like, this girl is Turkish. A Turk can accomplish all these, and that means that the people in Turkey are well educated. So these people, they kind of see themselves as someone who represents their nation, their people in a country that they studied in. Also, these people who talked about cultural attaché, they also say they kind of build bridges between the two cultures, two societies. So another type of contribution I'll be talking about is contributions to humanity. Some participants said that their contributions go beyond contributing to country. It's for humanity basically. So let me read this example, and I'm hoping that it'll be more clearer. This person who studied in UK says, I work on drug development. This is a very important contribution to humanity. The main motivation behind my doing a master's in the UK about this was to contribute to humanity as well. I also worked on a drug development project in undergrad, so I think I contribute in this sense. But what she says makes sense because once the drug is out there and it's kind of being exported to everywhere, it's not just a contribution to one country or just one nation. Another example to this one is a social scientist though, so you can see the difference. She says, as someone who sees herself as more of a world citizen now, I think the issues related to the world interests me more. So I focus my work on it accordingly. I do my projects in this area, social gender inequality. I communicate this to others and still try to learn the best practices in this. I try to contribute to to such societal issues and also environmental issues this way. As you can see, this person kind of sees herself as a world citizen now. And she also said this during the interview, that she feels more world citizen after going abroad, studying, and coming back. And the last kind of contribution I would like to talk about is no contribution. And interestingly, this had two subgroups. Some groups, some of them told me that they just can't. It's not within their hands. They're unable to contribute. And some others told me about they don't want to contribute, which is very relevant to maybe the current developments in Turkey. Let me give you examples about this. The first one is about the inability. This person who's studying in Germany says, my goal of doing science is already related to my ego. You think you're doing it because it's useful to the world. You think it'll solve the mysteries of the universe. But our reality is not so. In reality, you're part of a circulation. You do nothing. I have no contribution overall. It is useful to be realistic. You have no contribution either. So yeah, according to this person, I have no contribution either. Well, not sure about that. Uh, But the second quote is a bit different. She says she doesn't want to. Let me read it for you. Normally, a mechatronics engineer would broaden her horizon, and for example, if she sees a machine abroad, she would build this back home and use it. This way, she can contribute to Turkey. But should I do this in Turkey? Should I contribute to Turkey? Do I want Turkey to develop? I am not sure. So I need to tell you, those who said they want to contribute to home country are the majority in this group, and those who said no contribution are less in number. But there are still quite a few who said this, and it seems this is very relevant to the what's going on to the current situation, the political situation in Turkey. And in fact, we see a lot of surveys saying that youth is kind of turning their heads to somewhere else, saying that they're not um, very happy with the current situation, etc. I think this might be related to that. So yes, I think it's almost 30 minutes. So in this presentation, I talked about three broad domains of self-formation, which were the qualifications domain, the social domain, and the civic domain. And then I talked about emergent types of contributions, which were related to these three broad domains. These were those who would like to happily contribute to home country, and then those who would like their contribution to be towards humanity. They want to go beyond one nation. And then those who said they have no contribution at all. Um, yes, I think that concludes my talk. If you have any questions, I'm open to answering. And here you can see my contacts. You can email me or you can contact me through Twitter. Thank you very much. Tugay?
Okay, thank you, Yusuf. Thank you. I think you should keep the screenshot just at this stage. Maybe some people will take some notes, useful that at
I'll
Oxford.
check it out maybe in 5 or 6.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There are two questions in the Q&A, but as a moderator, I give the first chance to myself. Okay. Okay. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for this enlightening presentation. And this is, as far as I know, this is one of maybe the first study in this topic, and in studying the self-formation process of Turkish students. And we don't have so much research about Turkish international. There are many reasons for that, because, for example, you can find many research studies about Chinese students, because of the amount of Chinese students studying abroad, maybe some Korean students as well. But in many countries, Turkish students do not even at top 10 international students. This is one of the things, might be. And yeah, this is one of the things I'd like to share about it. I have a comment, also a question first. Actually, as far as I feel, when you share some things about the views from 4 different countries, actually, these are quite different countries, and the education is quite different, the value of a degree is quite different, so the experience is quite different. For example, Bulgaria, United Kingdom, Azerbaijan, and what was the fourth?
Germany.
Okay, Germany. Yeah, as a point of view from Turkey, these countries have quite different values for Turkey. So I think also the value for a degree for the Turkish companies are also changing. For example, a Bulgarian degree is sometimes even a less valuable degree than a Turkish degree. And also it might be relevant for Ukrainian as well. But for UK degree or German degree is much more valuable than a Turkish degree. Also, the experiences are quite different. So also, I like to say something about it. In Turkey, for the international audience, there is some kind of universal entrance exam. You have to take it. And when you graduate from high schools, you have to take that exam to enter the university. Based on that, you select your university. But in some countries, some students who wish to study abroad sometimes choose different ways to go abroad. And Bulgaria was a quite crucial example of this one, because of that difficulty of that exam, because it's quite competitive. Some students in the past were choosing Bulgaria to escaping that exam, actually, because even they cannot enter the university for a medicine faculty, because only the top students can study at medicine in Turkey. They just were going to Bulgaria to study at medicine, and then after graduation they return back to Turkey to become a doctor. But now it has been changed.
Yes.
So the value of a degree always is a kind of changing situation in Turkey. So here's my question. Um, are the students aware of this? And also, do you think that this kind of difference across the country also are shaping their experiences and also self-formation process in this higher education process, also their views on the contribution to Turkey?
Yes, I'm just trying to cancel this. I'll cancel it afterwards. So I'll start from the beginning. You said these countries are quite different, and you're right, they're quite different. And that was the reason why I chose them actually, because I wanted to get a better grasp of this theory. And you will not understand something very well if you're just focusing on one country. That was the main point. So that's why I had specific criteria. One of them was about the quality of higher education institutions, for example. For example, while UK and Germany has a lot of universities in top thousand of, let's say, in many well-known, let's say, rankings, those who those universities in Bulgaria didn't only, I guess there was only one university in top 1000 in Times Higher Education, and Shanghai ranking top 800 didn't have any universities from Bulgaria, and Azerbaijan universities did not feature in any of these. Um, so yes, there is a difference between in the let's say universities, and then I looked at the historical ties. So Azerbaijan, we have a different relationship. It's kind of like they've been talking about Turanianistic perspectives, like we're brothers, Turkic people, etc. And then Bulgaria, very different shared history in terms of Ottoman rule. And then Germany and UK, another different points. And then prior studies showed that the state, the kind of governing structure of these countries, also play a role. And I also tried to change, like I looked at the democracy index, for example. I looked at different things that kind of show how these countries might differ in terms of how they're governed. And these countries, they all have a very different perspective. UK is more like liberal market economy. Germany is more like coordinated market economy. Azerbaijan is very different post-Soviet country. Bulgaria, a little European influence, some post-Soviet influence. So these were done on purpose, and it came up in Bulgaria, for example. I guess when the point of studying abroad is just to obtain the qualifications, I told about three broad domains. And when it's the only matter is to get a qualification, to get a degree, you might end up going to, different means of obtaining a degree. And this includes paying for your degree. You just pay and try to get the degree. Because the social domain does not matter for them, or the civic domain. You can still improve yourself pretty much, but some people choose not to. And I have seen some participants in Bulgaria was like that, and Azerbaijan too.
Uh,
And
Yusuf, you can close your sharing
yes, I
screen.
will. Let me try to close it. I'm trying to. Was planning
Yeah,
on doing that.
for the share screen thing, I think.
Do I? Okay, I think I got it.
Okay, good. Go on.
Okay, and then I hope I answered your questions. By the way, did I miss any part? You can remind me.
Okay, no, go ahead.
Uh, yeah, like I think if I missed any part, I think I answered right. Did you have any probes about this?
Also, just may I ask one more thing? Have you
Yeah.
seen any difference across the fields? Maybe, I don't know, do you think that engineers
Uh,
think differently than the social scientists?
Yeah, yeah, especially in contribution, for example. Those who study in business area talked about economic contributions. Those who study in sociology talked about very different stuff. Like they talked about values. They want to go back and contribute in a different way. So subject area makes a difference. and that is why I try to include as many subject area as possible. Um, and that's why like these domains I talked about are very broad, and that kind of seems to be shared by all these who study different topics.
Okay, thank you. There are three questions on the chat box. Yusuf, do you see that?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
So we have Q&A and then chat. Are we going with the Q&A then?
okay, just pick one and go ahead.
Um, okay, I guess we have two questions from Darshini. I guess it might, the latest one might include the first one. Let me read the latest one first. Thank you so much for such a great presentation, Yusuf. My question is a two-pronged one. Could you kindly share how you approach your data in terms of having an analytical framework? What theories shape your analytical framework, and how did you approach data analysis given that you had 50 participants from three countries? Let me start with the first one. What theories shaped your analytical framework? Well, the first one is self-formation and agency. Those were kind of central. But then self-formation, it's a new approach, and I got looked seek guidance from literature. And then I found Biesta's work. Biesta has these three purposes of education he talks about, three broad purposes. They're quite influential in the literature, and I thought it might be useful in this work as well. These three purposes of education are, you know, to qualify the people, to socialize, the students socialize, and then students subjectify. So the qualifications part is very similar to my perspective, but the other two are different. So subjectification is more about becoming unique. Like, let's say a person X is studying in a country. Uh, by going to school, they socialize, they become more like a society in some aspects. But at the same time, they subjectify, they become different. But I thought this still is valid for international education, but it gets complicated. For example, let's say a student from Norway is studying in UK. If this student socializes, becomes, let's say, more like UK people, does that mean he's subjectifying at home? Or let's say he goes through a subjectification process in UK, does that mean he's not, uh, let's say, adapting, quote unquote, to that culture? So in international mobility, I noticed there's always subjectification within socialization, and vice versa is true as well. This is one theory that helped me. The second question is, how did you approach data analysis given that you had? I did thematic analysis as suggested by Miles Huberman and Saldana. So I basically looked at the themes. Once I see that certain things get together, cluster, I called it a theme, and then I had subsections. And then Sinem has a question. Why do you think that, generally speaking, Turkey tends to favor students with degrees from abroad? Do you think there will ever be a time when Turkish employees are satisfied with degrees obtained from Turkish universities? What must be done to tackle this? Well, I guess to answer this, it goes really back in history, maybe. Like when, and it's also about what we think as a nation we are doing. I think at one side, these countries, especially UK and Germany, have a lot of opportunities. They're economically doing better in some senses, and they can provide more stuff. For example, one participant told me she's studying chemistry in a German university. She says when you do something wrong in an experiment in Turkey, she did her undergrad back in Turkey. She said it was really hard to get those substances again because they're really expensive, etc., etc. But in Germany, they say, hey, why did you do it wrong? But then they give you the substance. It's just small, very easier. So that's one thing. They really do have, in some senses, more advanced stuff. And the second thing is maybe we need Turkish people, Turkey, we need to gain more confidence about this. Like, for example, an education from Boğaziçi University, Koç University, Middle East Technical University. I've been to these universities. They're really good, really high quality. But there's this perspective. If I obtain this degree from France, Germany, oh, it's cooler. So One, we need to develop further. We have to be realistic. Second, we also need to work on our mindset, saying that when something is foreign, it doesn't necessarily have to be cool. And another point is those who study in Bulgaria, just like Tugay told us, uh, Bulgaria and Azerbaijan, some of them are people who couldn't get into a university in Turkey. And hence, they found that Bulgaria has a good university. It's in Europe, for example, so why not? That's one opportunity. I'm not saying that not all those who went to Bulgaria went there because they couldn't get into a university in Turkey, but there are some. But you generally find that less in UK. Maybe another question.
And
Um,
I just want to say something. Actually,
Go
I
ahead.
have met Turkish students studying in Bulgaria. I think the biggest challenge for those kind of students is visa-free travel across Europe. I think they are not allowed to do that. Now, I am asking Bulgarian government to do that, and then they may attract much more students from Turkey.
You mean if they don't ask for
Yeah.
a visa?
Yeah. Just the Turkish students can only live and study in Bulgaria, but then they are not allowed to
Okay.
visa-free travel across European countries because one of the reasons why the Turkish students study in Europe because they like to travel a lot and across Europe, but in Bulgaria they are not allowed to do that, as far as I know.
Yeah, true. And I think Bulgaria, having a degree in Bulgaria has a bigger problem now because
Yeah,
Higher Education Council in Turkey recently, it has been a few years, cancelled uh, the equivalence of the degrees obtained in Bulgaria in Turkey. So those who obtained a degree in Bulgaria has to pass an exam to to show that they're officially university graduates. Should we continue to the next question, Tugay?
yeah,
Or
yeah. Go ahead. There are many
okay,
questions.
um, there's this anonymous attendee saying that is there a longitudinal research on the contributions of the Turkish students who studied abroad on academia? Do you think this kind of work is needed? Well, I definitely think this kind of work is needed, and I myself, I this study I think would have benefited from longitudinal design, but in UK PhDs are only 3 years, so I'm trying to do my best to graduate in 3 years. So, but I did some remedies for this. What did I do? My interviews had a biographical approach, so I told them to tell me about their life stories. So I couldn't have a longitudinal approach, but that was one way to alleviate this. Another thing I used life timeline forms. So life timeline forms were basically unstructured forms that I sent to students prior to the interviews. And I told them, can you please write the important moments in your life story and just briefly explain them. There are a few points to this. One point is that self-formation is about reflexivity. Um, so you have to think about your own process, your background. So this form kind of helped me with that. And then another point is that I was able to see the processual development. So yes, I tried to remedy that, but more longitudinal research on this would probably be beneficial. And as far as I'm aware, there may not be a longitudinal research on the contributions of
Yeah.
Turkish students.
Yusuf, I just want to say one thing on about that question because
Yes.
yeah, unfortunately there is no research about it as far as I know again. But
Mhm.
also in the international literature, it says that having an overseas degree, actually having an international education, will be
Mhm.
beneficial for the academic productivity because when you turn back, already you will have so much international collaborations, which will help you to understand the global issues better, and also you may conduct research studies across countries, something like that. There are many studies about the overall positive effects of an international degree on academic productivity. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Should we go ahead with the
Yeah.
next one?
Oh, and also there are some questions in the chat box. You can also,
Okay, maybe we'll come to those after here.
yeah. Right.
So, İlkay Hultum, I guess that's the next one. Uh, How do you see the online education for the future? Um, so online education, I have not specifically researched on this, but given the current pandemic, it gained enormous attention. And now, so before we would try to avoid these, or we would do this in exceptional situations. But now it became the normal. So it seems like there will be an increase after the pandemic. I think the online education, the popularity will decrease a bit, but I think it'll be in overall be more than it was before the pandemic.
Yusuf,
Mhm.
related to that question, may I ask a small thing?
Yeah.
Because as far as I feel, as an international student living in Turkey now,
Yes.
actually I don't feel, and actually I don't recognize myself as an international student, and my experiences have been changed a lot. I
Really?
actually just attend some kind of online seminars, something like that, but still, in a some sense, I don't feel that because normally in London I used to go some kind of seminars, and then I used to meet many international students, scholars from all kind of countries, blah blah blah. Actually, I just used to go different places, and I had some kind of interaction in London, in UK, with the other people, something like that. But now I feel that all of them just are gone. How do you feel that those kind of online things will shape the self-formation process? I feel that it's gonna limit, but to what extent it's gonna limit? What do you think that?
Uh, In my perspective, when we limit our education to online only, so the only interaction you have with the university or that country is the classes. So you're limiting your self-formation to what I said in the beginning. I said that this should goes beyond classes. But when it's online education, it's generally stays within classes and not just classes. In classes, normally you're physically there, but now you're attending virtually. I can't say that this is not self formation. There is self formation going on, but it will be limited to just being there, going to a coffee shop there, like, I don't know, seeing how people act, react, see a protest going on around, etc. Yes. So, and then should we?
Yeah.
There's one last question, I guess, in the Q&A from Darshini. She says, Yusuf, besides time constraints, what would you consider to be a limitation of your study? Good question. So I said longitudinal is one of them. Another one is, so this is based on interviews and participant reported data. So there is the potential for what's the word? Social desirability issue. They might answer in the way that they would think is better, cooler, whatever. So to remedy this, generally these researchers ask for for example, semi-structured interview approach is a way of trying to remedy this. You ask for probes. Someone says like really cool stuff. Hey, I'm doing this. I'm Superman. And then you ask, what do you do as a Superman? And then they can't say they fly. And then stuff like this. So you keep probing. But yes, still social desirability is there. Longitudinal data, and what else? More context can be looked at this, and then this is limited to Turkish students, obviously, and Turkey-related stuff comes up. So more studies about this conducted in different contexts will be helpful. Um, should I go ahead with the questions in the
Yeah.
chat?
Yeah. I think.
Um, okay. Amardeep. Hi Yusuf, congratulations. It was wonderful presentation. I enjoyed it. In the process of self-formation, how do students unlearn something in your case? Just for fun. Unlearn. That's interesting. Like what is meant by unlearn? Like to forget? Is that the question? If that is meant, maybe like you can send maybe another message saying that by unlearn I mean this. um, Unlearning, I didn't specifically ask questions about it, but maybe let's wait for maybe a bit more details about this from you, Amar. And then, okay, the same question from Ilkay about online education. We answered that. And then Refika Arabacı. Thank you for sharing your study. I was wondering, where do you take the materialistic changes and structure when you look at self-formation? Because it seems difficult to compare without evaluating the structure of institutions, students in it. So structure is, I guess by structure, it's meant that the society, the rules surrounding you, structure is always there. The point with self-formation, the idea is focusing on the agency. Like there are constraints around us. There are things that make stuff easier for us and some stuff that makes things harder. And they will always be there. But agency is what operates within all these. By focusing on agency, we're seeing that those, uh, regardless of the constraints, some people were able to do this, some people were able to do that. So by focusing on agency, we're actually showing that agency does matter. Constraints are there, and they came up like contextual differences keep coming up, but the focus of the study was how students, their agency, affected, reacted to those, or proactively influenced these. Um, okay.
I,
Anything
I,
else?
I think you have answered all of the questions. And also, I think Yusuf, you may share one more time your email or Twitter account, and you can write it here, or you may share your screen before we close up the session,
Mm-hmm.
because some participants may want to
Mm-hmm.
contact you again and again. Okay. Um, yeah, we can close it now, and the time is up. Actually, thank you for your time, Yusuf, and this was quite interesting topic. And then thank you for your first preliminary findings, for sharing, and
Thank
also
you for the opportunity.
also I thank for everyone who joined today, and then for these great questions and then the answers for as well. Also, I like to thank UNICEF Institute for giving an opportunity to young researchers to voice up their research studies. This is a good opportunity to share in this pandemic time, to share this kind of studies across the world. I think it might be helpful for everyone. And again, Yusuf is here. Every time you can contact Yusuf, and also Yunus, and stay tuned with Yunus Emre Institute other sessions as well. And then let's see in a different session, next session. Actually, Yusuf, would you like to say a goodbye to everyone and whatever?
Yes. Thank you everyone for listening, and thank you for UNICEF Institute for giving the opportunity to talk. It's really great to stay connected in these pandemic times where we try to stay at home and be responsible. So everyone, keep safe, keep healthy, and hope to see in another maybe young scholars seminar at this program.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your time, and bye bye.